Hello, good evening, everyone. We will wait for a couple of more minutes so that other participants can join. Okay, let's start. So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second problem solving session for the course Municipal Solid Waste Management. So, I am one of the TA for this course. My name is Asma Parveen, and I'll be taking problem solving session on every Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m. And there are two more TAs whose session are scheduled on, I think, Saturday and Tuesday or Wednesday. So let's start. So generally what we do is we will discuss the module lectures followed by the previous year questions. So since in week 2 also all the lectures were based on concept, so there is no numerical till now. So when there will be numericals, we will discuss that, and also I'll be adding some few numericals from my side. But since this week was about concept about storage and waste handling and collection, so we will discuss those concepts and then we will see the previous year questions. So let me first share my screen. And if you any one of you have any doubt, please feel free to ask in between the lecture and while I am discussing the lectures. Also, you can raise your hand anytime, or you can um, just unmute yourself and ask, or you can write your doubt in the chat. So I'll be more than happy to discuss your doubts. So let me first share my screen. So it will be really good if any one of you will just confirm after sharing my screen whether my screen is visible or not. So I think my video is now visible. So let me share my screen. I think the screen is also visible. Okay, just give me a. I think now the whole screen is visible. So, welcome to the problem solving session for the course in Municipal Solid Waste Management. The course instructor is Professor Ajay Kalamdad from Department of Civil Engineering, IIT Guwahati. And my name is Asma Parveen. I am one of the TA for this course. I am a PhD scholar at IIT Kanpur. So, let me first share. So, we have discussed lectures. Why this? So in the previous week, we have discussed six lectures from 1 to 6. We have discussed about what is waste, what are the qualification of the various municipal solid waste. Okay, just let me turn off my screen. Okay. So last week we have discussed about waste, what are its qualification, how we can characterize the waste on the basis of physical, chemical and biological properties. And we have also discussed about water hazardous waste, water industrial waste, and we have discussed about waste generation, how waste generation is related to the income of the locality, and we have seen the trend that in generally in higher income societies, the generation of bulky waste, that is compacting waste like glass, not glass, like cardboards, plastics, cans, these are more as compared to the low income families or localities. And in this week, we will be discussing about waste handling and storage, followed by primary collection, and then we will discuss about secondary collection. So this lecture 7 is about handling, separation and storage at source. So we all know that after Swachh Bharat mission, there is separation, a source separation of solid waste. That is, the waste is segregated in wet waste and in dry waste at the source is itself, that is at the household level itself, and the vehicles come and collect this waste separately, and also there is one different separation of the source, that is the hazardous waste like batteries, earphones and other electronic waste, which are stored at the household separately and is collected separately. So here we can see that the source separation of waste is a critical step in the management of the residential solid waste, because if the waste is segregated at the source itself, then its collection will be very efficiently done, and also the processing at the final processing uh, factories, it can be also done very efficiently. So waste handling in general, handling refers to the activities associated with managing solid waste until they are placed in containers used for their storage before collection. So whatever activities are done before the collection of the store, before the collection of the waste in the storage containers or to the recycling centers, these all activities comes under waste handling. That is, we generally segregate our waste in our household in green bins, that is for the biodegradable kitchen waste, and in the blue bins we do for the recyclables. Next is separation. Separation of the solid waste component at the source of generation is one of the most positive and effective ways, because if the waste is segregated, then the recovery and reuse of the recyclable materials can be done very efficiently from the waste. Because what happens that the wet waste is mostly biodegradable, and what happens in biodegradation by the microorganisms, we know that gases along with water is water is formed as the final product, and this comes out as leachate from the waste. And if the wet waste and dry waste both are combined, and the leachate from the wet waste will also wet the dry waste, and it will be for use for nothing, and it is very difficult to segregate the mixed waste at the processing facilities. So if we want to recover a maximum amount of recyclables from the waste, then separation of the waste at the source itself is very, very important. And because of this, in the Swachh Bharat mission, it was done that the waste is first of all, it is segregated separately at the household level by the people itself, and it is also collected separately in different compartment of the vehicle. So here we can see that there is a clip from the newspaper that unsegregated waste won't be collected from July. So this is for after the separate collection of waste. So here we can see a picture that a lot of mixed waste is lying alongside the road. So this is very unhygienic and very unesthetically good, because nobody wants to pass a road where there is lot of litter, and because it also generates lot of odor, lot of scavengers roam around here, and also we can see a person in the middle of the waste. So they are generally the rag pickers. They take out the like cans, papers, cardboard, whichever thing is usable, they take out from the waste, and then they try to sell it. So this kind of situation is also not healthy for these people also. So source segregation of waste has been started and it is collected separately. So there are different bins with different color for different type of waste. So green bins is for the wet waste, that is the waste coming out from kitchen. It includes the eggshells, bone, flowers, fruit, juice, vegetable peels, soil tissues, food wrappers, paper towels, fish, meat, all these are biodegradable and these are stored in the green bins. Followed by the blue bins, which is for the dry waste. It includes paper, metal, glass, rugs, rubbers, cardboards, storage containers, etc. And the third category is for the domestic hazardous waste, which includes e-waste, hazardous waste like paints, oil, chemicals, solvents, pesticides, and etc. Also, the household medical waste comes under hazardous waste. Also, the other categories are batteries, light bulbs, tube lights. We know because in all these electronic waste and also the batteries and lights and bulbs, there is a some heavy metals are used which are very very toxic if consumed by the plants, animals, and as well as humans. So handling of this waste separately is very important. So these are segregated separately at the household and it is collected separately. So here we all must have seen this vehicle. It is from a picture from Indore Nagar Nigam, and also we know that in Indore the solid waste is managed most properly in all the cities in our country. So here we can see there is a green compartment. It is for the wet waste, and the second compartment is blue. It is for the dry waste. Also here we can see the bins. Green is for the wet waste and blue is for the dry waste. So here again a picture is shown for a stall near the road. Blue container, here it is a blue container for dry waste. So next is waste handling and separation at residential dwellings. So we can divide the residential dwellings into three major categories. First one is the low rise under 4 stories building. Second is the medium rise from 4 to 7 stories. And third one is the high rise over 7 stories. So the building with less than 4 stories, there will not be there will not be many families residing because number of floors are limited. So there is separate handling of waste for different localities based on whether it is locality with high rise buildings, or it is for medium rise buildings, or it is for low rise buildings. So for low rise dwellings, the residents itself are responsible for placing the solid waste and recyclable materials that are generated and accumulated in around their dwellings and storage containers. So either the tenants, so the resident themselves are responsible for placing their waste which is generated directly to the collection vehicles or to the storage containers that is placed in that locality. Also, these owners are responsible for transporting their containers with waste to the street curb or or to the main collection storage containers in their locality. So this picture is for the house to house collection of the solid waste management. Also, low rise dwellings can also hire a sanitary person who will look after all this collection of the waste. So next is for the low and medium rise dwellings. So here generally there is a basement where the storage of the collection is done, and typical solid waste storage locations include basement storage, outdoor storage, and occasionally compactor storage. So these buildings can have either the storage in the basement, or there can be a particular place in the locality where the storage is done, or also they can even have compactors to compact the waste. So the building for the basement storage, the building owner provides a basement storage area, room or area for storage of solid waste. Residents carry their waste and recyclable material to the storage area and deposit them into the appropriate container, that is different color containers for different category of the waste. And the maintenance staff hired is responsible for transporting the containers to the street for curbside collection. So basically in low and medium rise dwellings, they will have a separate basement or a separate area for storage of the waste, and they can have a maintenance staff who can carry these containers to the roadside or to the street for collection. Next, the previous was the basement storage. Next is the outdoor storage. So in many low areas, large storage containers can be placed, and these storage containers can be emptied mechanically into the larger containers, or it can be emptied manually. So here the handling of the waste is similar to the basement storage, that the households, they dump their waste in these containers, and there can be a sanitary person who help in the emptying of these containers into the larger vehicles. So here is a picture where the emptying of the storage containers is done mechanically. No manual labor is required here. The containers are tipped into these larger collection vehicles, and they are emptied and placed back in their at their original location. So next is the high-rise dwellings. So in high-rise dwellings, the most common method of handling solid waste includes it can be one of the following. So waste are picked up by building maintenance personnel or porters from various floors and taking to the basement or service area. So it is generally practiced for very high-rise buildings that waste is collected from each household by a person, and that person collects the waste from all the houses and takes to a basement area or to a particular area where the handling of the waste for this building is done. So waste are taken to the basement or service area by tenants, or waste usually are bagged and placed by tenants in specially designed vertical chutes with opening located in each floor. So these types of chutes can be present. Each one can be for the dry waste and one can be for the wet waste, where the owner itself will dump the waste by these chutes, and it will go to directly to the basement from where it is separated and collected. So we will have so see, here is a picture. So the person can dump the waste from these chutes, and it will go to the basement, and it will be each wet waste will be packed in different plastic bag or some other bag, and dry waste will be in some other bag, and it can be separated here on the basis of their classification. So next is storage of solid waste at the source itself. So if the waste is to be stored at the source, it depends upon the following factors. First is the effect of storage on the waste components. So if the storage is going to be done for the wet waste, then the storage should not be more than 24 hours, because we know that the wet waste is mostly biodegradable, and in after within 24 hours it start to degrade by the microbes, and it produces very bad smell, and aesthetically it is very unpleasing because it attracts lot of rodents, flies, and scavengers. Next is the type of the containers to be used. So if smaller containers are to be used, then it will affect the storage of the waste, because we cannot store that much of waste. So collection should be done very frequently. Next is the container location, and it is a tendency that nobody wants the container location to be near their household, because of the spillage of the waste from these container location. Next is the public health and aesthetics. It is very important, because the leachate from these waste are hazardous, because they contain lot of emerging contaminants from the medicines, or from the um, um, personal care, body cares products which we use, and obviously since there it will attract lot of flies and rodents, so aesthetically it is very unpleasing if the waste is stored in open bins near the household or communities. So next is effect of storage on waste components. So we will discuss each of the factors which governs the storage of the waste at the source separately. So first one is the effect of storage on waste components. So the effects of storing waste include, first is the biological or microbial decomposition. It will cause lot of odor. It will attract lot of flies. It will form leachate, which is hazardous. Next is the absorption of fluid. So what will happen that if the waste is mixed from the leachate from the biological degradation of the wet waste, it will also wet the papers or plastics and other things, and water can be absorbed on these waste, and these waste will also get ruined, and it cannot be eh, process, because these are the dry waste. So if you want to process, first we have to dry these waste, and also since it has soaked the leachate from other waste, so it has also become toxic, so the processing of these waste will become very difficult. Next is contamination of the waste components. So generally, if the waste is not segregated, then it will have various kinds of waste. It can have household cleaners, it can have paints, it can have oils, or it can have anything like batteries or etc etc, and these contain lot of heavy metals which are not essential for any of the living beings. So and because of the contamination of the waste components, so all the factors, three factor, that is the decomposition, biological decomposition, absorption of the fluid by the dry waste, and the contamination of the waste components. All these govern the storage. All these effects. All these are the effects of storing waste. So next is the type of containers. So sorry. So, what type of container is used for storage of the waste? Its type and capacity will depend upon following. First is the characteristic and type of the waste to be stored. Whether we have to whether we have to store the dry waste or the wet waste, the characteristic of the waste will govern the type and capacity of the container to be used for storage. Next is type of collection system in use, whether the collection system has mechanical tipping of the containers, or it has manual tipping. Next is the collection efficiency. If the collection efficiency is the collection frequency. If the collection frequency is very frequent, then we do not need large containers. But if it is not frequent, then we need large containers to accommodate the amount of waste which is generated in that area. Next is the space available for the placement of containers. So land is a very valuable resource. So before deciding the type and capacity of the container, we need land. So also depending upon whether the land is available or not, the capacity and types of container will be decided. So basically, there are two types of container system. First one is the hall container system, and second one is the stationary container system. So what happens in hall container system? The container itself, which is used for storage of the waste, these are hauled to the processing or transfer station. These are emptied there, and then they are returned to their original location or to some other location. So in hall container system, containers are hauled to the processing or transfer facility. But in the stationary container system, what happens? The containers which are used for storage of waste, they remain at their location, that is they are stationary. But what happens, these containers are emptied on into the collection vehicles, and these containers are placed at their original location. They are not hauled to the transfer station or to the other processing facilities. So here is a picture for a stationary container. So people living in this locality, they dump their waste in these containers, and then a collection vehicle comes, empty this container, and then they keep the container back to its original location. Next is container storage location. So the container storage location depends upon the type of dwellings or commercial and industrial facilities. It will depend upon whether it is low-rise dwellings, or whether it is a commercial building or some industrial facilities. And also it will depend upon the amount of space or land which is available and access to the collection services. So it is very important that whatever collection container we are using, it should be placed at such a place where the collection services can be done properly. Suppose if the container is placed in a very narrow road where the collection vehicles cannot go, so it will be very difficult to collect the waste there. So just give me a minute. I'm sorry. So I'm really sorry for the interruption. So the container storage locations, it will depend upon the type of the community which is to be served, the space which is available in that community, and the access to the collection services and vehicles. So what happens in low-rise dwellings? The containers are usually placed at the side or rear of the house. LAs, where LAs collection are used for some locations specially designated for these for that purpose. So we will discuss about these in the subsequent slides. And next, what happens? These LAs are generally kept where the waste generation is more, where traffic is low, and also one important point is that the distance between any two containers should not be more than 500 meter, because if the distance will be very large, then the person or the household people, it will very difficult for them to dump the waste in these containers. And the distance between house and nearest dustbin should not be more than 250 meters. So these are the points for storage collection, container storage location. So next is the public health and aesthetics. So as we can see that here is a dustbin, but all the waste is lying on the road. So this is very, very unesthetically unpleasing, and it attracts all types of insects, flies, rodents, etc. And it can also cause disease to humans, animals, and birds, even birds. If And also we have seen the incidents of eating of the plastic bags by the roadside animals, and unfortunately, a lot of death of animals takes place because of eating of these plastic bags. So some of the solution for the storage of the waste can be proper sanitation. So we can use containers which are having very tight lids. We can use container with tight lids so that it cannot be opened by animals. There can be periodic washing of the containers and storage areas so that it will not be unhygienic and it will not attract any rodents and flies. And it can control infestation of rats and flies, as I said. Next, our aesthetic consideration are related to the production of odor and the unsightly condition that can develop when adequate attention is not given to maintenance of sanitary conditions. So for aesthetics, it is very, very important that whatever waste is collected in the bins, after it is full, it is carried by the collection vehicle, it is emptied properly, and the area is cleaned properly. So this is a picture for underground waste collection bins. So this is not in our country. It is a picture from Europe. So in European countries, they have the collection of waste in the underground. So here we can see that these waste cannot be will not be attacked by scavengers. It will not be attacked by rat pickers. Neither animals. No one can spread this waste, and it can be efficiently collected from here. So the next one is the container capacity. How much capacity of container is required for any locality? So for a single household for the family of 5 members, a container of 12 to 15 liters for each dry and wet waste, if the collection is daily, is sufficient. So, and also the wet waste container should be washed daily after emptying, because we know that biological degradation or decomposition of wet waste takes place. So cleaning of the containers is very important. So, and for apartment complexes and large buildings, so these are the some figures like 25 kg HDP, that is high density polythene beans for 12 household can be used. 50 kg HDP beans for 24 households can be used, and 240 liters HDP beans for 48 households can be used. So this was the lecture 7. Let's move to lecture 8. So we have discussed about storage at source. Next is processing at stores at source. So processing, if the processing of some of the solid waste generated is done at the source, then it will reduce the volume. Reusable materials will be recovered, and it will also alter the physical form of the solid waste. Suppose if there is a household and that household is composting the wet waste, whatever wet waste is which is generated in that household is composted by that by the household members, then the it will reduce the overall volume of the waste. And also we know that compost is a very good soil conditioner. We can use in the we can use in gardening, and we will get a good resource out from the kitchen waste which we are generating. So this will also reduce the overall waste which is generating or coming out from that household. So, and also we know that in India there is a tendency that we collect the metals and cans and we sell it to the kabadi waras, or the, and we also get some money for that. So there is also tendency that some of the household perform this, that they collect the plastic, cardboard, paper separately and they sell it to the kabadi walas or rack pickers, and through this also the overall amount of waste which is generated, it can be reduced. So the most common on-site processing or operations which are used at residential dwellings are: for dry waste, component separation and compaction can be done. Like in dry waste we have different types of waste, like we have paper, we have glass, we have plastic, we have metal. So these all can be separately. And as we know that cans, aluminium cans can be compacted, and it can reduce the overall volume of the waste, and it will be very easy to transport these waste. Next is incineration, but in India, incineration is not performed because to incinerate the waste, we need a lot of we need proper instrument or setup to incinerate the waste. And also incineration is very harmful if the smoke, whatever smoke is coming out from incineration of the waste, if it spreads in the air, then it contains lot of dioxins and other things which are very harmful for humans and also for the animals and plants. So incineration should be done in proper treatment facility. Next is composting or vermicomposting. Like I said, that there is composting bins which is performed at a household level, or it can be performed at community level. So the wet waste generation can be reduced. And next is the anaerobic digestion. So biogas can be generated from the wet waste, and there are some photos of the household level anaerobic digesters which can be used to generate the biogas, and these biogas generally contain 50-60% of the methanes, and it can be used to for cooking purposes. So first is the component separation. So it is this operation is necessary in recovery of the resource from dry waste and recovery of energy and conversion of products from wet waste. There also energy of recovery can be done through anaerobic digestion, and conversion of can be done in the composting or vermicomposting, in which the kitchen waste is converted into compost. So at household level, component separation is done by source segregation. That is, in household itself, the wet waste and dry waste is separated. But this issue has some aesthetic operation has some aesthetic issues because it requires large space and manpower, and it is highly time consuming, and it is uneconomical at small scale. So the problem with separation and processing of the waste at household level, because what happens, even the composting of the waste at household level produce some odor, because we know that the waste is getting converted into different forms, or it is getting broken by microorganisms, so there will be some odor problem. And also it is very time consuming because we need to aerate, we need to uh, aerate the kitchen waste to convert into the compost by aerobic microorganisms. So, to make this processes economical, this can be performed at community level by engaging hires who can work as informal sector for recycling or reuse of segregated dry waste, generating income for themselves. So, in developing country like India, the recycling and reuse of the waste is generally done by the informal sector. There is no formal sector for recycling or segregation or reuse of the segregated waste. We have informal sector in which we have the rack pickers, where they perform these kinds of work, like they collect the reusables like papers, cardboards, metals, and then they sell it. And through this, recycling or reuse of the waste is done. And also, they also generate some income for themselves. So next is the compaction. So, so the two types of compactors which are used for processing of waste at residential dwellings are home compactor units. So they can reduce the volume up to 70%, but they can, since they are at smaller scale, so they can only handle a small proportion of the waste which is generated. Next is compactor for the large apartments and buildings, so they can also reduce the volume of the waste, and they are generally installed at the bottom of the solid waste chute, where or it can be installed at the basement where the waste can be compacted. So here it is a figure for the trash compactor for large apartments. So next is the handling of waste by combustion or incineration. So here is a picture for incineration plant. For incineration of the waste, we need a proper facility to address all the gases and smoke coming out from the waste, and also disposal of the ash which will be left out by incineration. And so this process cannot be performed in houses. They need a proper dedicated incineration facilities to incinerate the waste. So, and as I have discussed that in yellow bins, the hazardous waste are collected. And these hazardous waste, which are collected, they should be incinerated at the designated incineration plant. Next is composting. It is an effective way of reducing the volume and altering the physical composition of the solid waste. Because at one place we are also reducing the volume, and at the same time we are getting a useful product which is compost, which can be used in the gardening in the house. So it can either be done at the household level or it can be done at the community level. So GK Sai has raised his hand. So can you please unmute yourself and say what is your doubt?
It opened unfortunately. Sorry.
Okay, okay, no problem. Sorry. So the composting involves three steps. First is the waste preparation, followed by degradation of waste, and last is the finishing of waste. So for composting, waste should be prepared like the larger waste component should be broken or chopped into smaller pieces because it is degraded by microbes. So there should be but small in sizes to be eaten by the microbes. And also moisture content is a very important factor while composting of the waste, because we know that for growth of the microbes, some optimum temperature and moisture is needed, and is needed to for them to grow. Also, there can be addition of little manure compost or effective microorganism, because we have to compost the waste. So we need that particular type of microorganism which can eat these waste and convert into compost. So to either we can get the waste degraded by adding the effective microorganisms, or we can add all little amount of mature compost, because in this compost these microbes will already be present. So either by adding the mature compost or some solution or powder of microorganisms, we can speed up the composting process. Next is degradation of the waste. So for degradation, temperature is very important, because microbes grow at a particular range of temperature. So we need to maintain that temperature, moisture, and aeration. So aeration is very important for aerobic for maintaining the aerobic conditions, because what happens, there can be anaerobic degradation also, but anaerobic degradation takes longer time. It will take 2 to 3 months, but the aerobic degradation, it can be completed between 30 to 60 days. So we need to upturn the overall waste to aerate it, so that air can pass through the waste and it will get aerated and it can be eaten by the aerobic microorganisms. So there can be different types of composting. It can be composting in pits or piles or in vessels, or it can be vermicomposting. So in vermicomposting, what happens, we add earthworms. So waste is eaten by earthworms and it is composted. Next is the finishing of the waste. After the compost is prepared, it need to be cured and screened to reduce the particle size. The larger particle which are not there converted into compost, it can again be placed in the that particular bin, and again the microbes or mature compost can be added to degrade that waste. So here it is a picture for a household level compost. Here we can see the holes. So these holes for is for the air circulation, so that aerobic condition are maintained in these containers, and the degradation of waste can be done. So the fresh waste can be added from the top, and the compost can be taken from the bottom. So the proper aeration is very important. So the bins are divided with a grill separating the two sections. So from the top we can add the waste, and from the bottom there will be degradation of the waste taking place. So next is the vermicomposting. So in vermicomposting, what happens? Special types of earthworms are added to convert the organic waste into warm casting. That is vermicomposting. So what happens? These earthworms eat the waste and they excrete, and their excreta is the compost which can be used for gardening or other purposes. And vermicomposting is a very simple and effective process, and it can be done in indoors or in the kitchen itself by keeping a bin. So there is also hole provided for the earthworms to grow and survive in the bins. So here it is a community level composting plant. So here we can see that there is a very long place where the compost is being getting prepared. And also we can see in vermicomposting we use a special type of earth forms. So here is a picture for pit composting. Like there is a pit is dug in, and the waste can be dumped. The kitchen waste can be dumped in these pits, and then after the pit is covered full, it will be covered by soil, and slowly it will convert into compost. So here it is a community level compost. This is a pile compost. The waste is arranged in piles, and proper amount of water is added, and the proper microbes are added, and these are mixed time to time for the air circulate and for the air to percolate in this waste, and for the microbes to degrade this waste. And the size of the pile, it may vary depending upon the amount of the waste and the space which is available. And it is generally 2 meter on each side and not more than 1.5 meter in height. because if the waste height will be very high, then there are chances that anaerobic condition will prevail, because the air will not percolate through the waste, and anaerobic degradation will start. So for that, the height and the width of the waste is generally limited. So also we can use wires or wooden planks to keep the pile together, so that it is not spread by animals, or it is not spread by rain. So some of the advantages and disadvantages of household composting are, so household composting encourages the use of organic farming, and it reduces the need for chemical fertilizers. So one thing is like, or the for organic waste or organic fertilizers like compost, or it can be biochar, which is produced by pyrolysis of the waste. These, if these are applied into the farms, or if these are applied into the plants, then slowly they also give plants some resistance to fight against the pesticides. So also there is a lot of there's lot of it is very in the news to shift to the organic farming rather than the chemical farming, which is performed where lot of chemicals in the form of pesticides, insecticides, and lot of chemical fertilizers are used, where the efficiency is very low for, and also it produces lot of hazardous leachate, and it pollutes the groundwater, pollutes the surface water, harms the aquatic ecosystem, and so on. So the advantage of this can be, if the kitchen waste is composted, it can be used in the farms. Next, by composting, we are reducing the amount of waste which is to be managed by the municipality. Also, if we are separating the wet waste, if we are processing the wet waste, then we are only then only dry waste will come out from the household, and it can be then that if dry and wet waste is not mixed, then it can be very easily, dry waste can be very easily recycled. But there can be some advantages, like there can be odor, there can be leachate, and there can be flies and rodents if this composting is not done in proper closed bins. And there can be problem of space requirement, but in vessel composting requires little space as compared to compost pits. So we can use smaller vessels for composting, and household composting, it is mainly used for gardening. So there is no economical benefit from the composting of these waste. But there are several advantages of community level composting. So there can be greener neighborhoods. So the compost can be used to apply in the gardens near the in that community, and it will help to grow the plants very efficiently. It will improve the soil quality. It will enhance food security by applying these compost into the farmlands, because we are getting some uh, compost or fertilizer locally, which is generated from the waste. So the cost will be very, very less as compared to the commercial chemical fertilizers. So the plant, and also it has been seen that if organic fertilizers are applied into the farmlands, then the yield is very high, comparatively higher as compared to the chemical fertilizers. So it will also enhance the food security. And since lesser waste is to be handled, so there will be lesser truck traffic because of the hauling of the containers. There will be more local jobs, because at community level, if you are performing the composting, then there will be few people which will be hired to maintain and manage this waste. So there will be some job opportunities for the locals. And and also they will get some skills about composting, which can be forwarded to the for next generation, and they can get benefit through this. And here it is a clip from Swachh Bharat mission, which are being made towards composting awareness under the campaign Compost Banao, Compost Apnao, that we have to make compost and we have to adopt compost in our farms and in our gardening. And in Swachh Bharat mission, the efforts are made to encourage the conversion of the biodegradable waste into compost, and it can be used as fertilizer, reducing the waste, and it can also reduce the waste which is going to the landfill sites. Because if biodegradable waste are going to the landfill sites, slowly it will degrade, it will produce leachate, and these leachate will take all the harmful chemicals from the surrounding waste, and it can, if the landfill is not handle in engineered way, then that leachate can go and pollute the groundwater, it can pollute the surface water, and it can be harmful for the health of the living organisms. So here it is a picture about community level composting in Kerala. So let's move to the anaerobic digestion. So here it is a picture where the gas from the anaerobic digestion, that is biogas, is used for cooking. So, what is digestion? Anaerobic digestion? It is digestion in absence of oxygen. What happens? There are microorganisms which can survive in conditions where there is no oxygen. They do not require oxygen. So, they can perform their metabolism and other life processes in absence of oxygen. And also, their byproduct after the degradation is biogas, which consists of methane and CO2 and other byproducts. And it generally contains more than 50% of the methane, and which can be directly used for cooking in the household. And there is some figure given that in China is a country where most currently more than 30 million household biogas digester is being installed in China, followed by India, which has 3.8 million household biogas digesters, and next is Nepal and Bangladesh. So here it is a figure for household level digesters in a city in South India. So what happened in these digester, there is also a provision for storage or collection of the collection of the biogas which is generated by degradation of the waste by microbes. And here it is a community level biogas digester. So here it is a separate storage system for collection for storage of the biogas which is generated, and from through these pipes, this biogas can be sent for further use. And since we have to store the gas, so the storage container should be airtight. And in fact, the digester unit should be airtight. If airtight, if it will not be airtight, then whatever gas which is being generated, it will escape out, and also there is chance that the air will percolate in the waste, and it will increase the level of oxygen in the waste, and it can harm or kill the anaerobic microbes. And one of the advantage of the anaerobic digester is at one place we are getting the biogas. And also, since these wastes are degraded by the microbes, so we will get the solid product, byproduct, which will be left after which will be left after digestion. It will also be used as a biofertilizer in the agriculture field. And depending upon whether we have to use a digester in a household level, it can be range from 1 meter cube to 10 meter cube, depending on whether we are using it at a household level or it is a community level. And for larger installation, it can have the volume go up to 1000 meter cube. So this is a picture for biogas digester. Next, let's go to the third module. So we have discussed about waste generation in the week one. Next, we have discussed about waste handling and storage at the source. Now we will discuss about primary collection, and next about secondary collection. So this lecture is about primary collection. So the waste includes not only the gathering of the solid waste from various sources, but also the hauling of these waste. So in waste collection, what we do, the waste is gathered at a particular place, and it is also taken, these waste is taken from that location to the transfer station or to the waste waste processing facilities. And also the unloading of the collection vehicle is also considered as a part of the collection operation, in which the collection vehicles goes to the transfer station or to the processing facilities. So the gathering or picking up the solid waste will vary with the characteristics of the facilities, activities of the location where waste are generated, and the methods used for on-site storage of the accumulated waste. So it will depend upon the whether the waste is being taken to the transfer station or it is taken to the some processing facility or directly to the landfill. So the picking of the waste will depend on that, and also it will depend on whether that the activities which is being taken in that location from where the waste is collected, whether it is an industrial setup or whether it is a residential area. So if there will be a residential area, then collection of wet waste and dry waste will be done. And if it is a commercial complex, then generally the wet waste, sorry, dry waste will be generated more. So collection will be done accordingly. Next, there are two types of collection. First is the primary collection, which is generally referred as collection services, and next is the secondary collection, which is referred as collection system. So, in secondary collection, what happened? The waste from the primary collection vehicles are transferred to the secondary collection vehicles, and they are taken further for processing or disposal. So, first we'll discuss about primary collection or collection services. So, it is the collection of the waste from the source of generation. So the vehicle which comes generally in the morning, this comes under the primary collection where they collect the waste from door to door. So the collection points can be located outside the household or it can be at a particular location for the whole community. And depending upon the collection vehicle and the distance to the waste treatment or disposal site, the waste may be taken to the disposal site or to a transfer station. So whether the waste is to be further treated or it is to be directly taken to the disposal site, it will depend upon the collection vehicle and depending on this, the waste can be taken directly to the transfer station or disposal site. So there are different type of collection services. That is the primary collection. So for low-rise detached apartment, homeowners are responsible for placing the containers to and emptying of the container at the curb. So here we can see a lady is emptying her container waste container into the larger container which is kept at the side of the road. So this is the curb service. And also the household is owner is responsible for returning the empty container to their storage location until the next collection. So in LA services, what happened? There are so in this figure we can see that waste storage containers are kept on the side of the road. So here a vehicle can come and collect the waste from these containers. So next is the set out setback services or door to door services, which is practice in majority of the cities in our country. So here a vehicle comes and the owner of the house is responsible for emptying his waste container into the vehicle. So out of the 29 states, in 18 states, this house to house collection of waste is performed. And after this house to house collection, nearly 82% of the waste is which is generated is collected in these states, and we have a nearly 28% of the waste which is getting treated and reused, and then after that the waste is dumped in the field. So next is the set out service. So it is similar to the set out setback service where that is a door to door collection. The only difference is that household owner is responsible for returning the container to their storage location. So here the after emptying of the storage container, the household owner is responsible to take it back to their original storage location. Next is the backyard services. So here the generally the bins are kept at the backside of the house, and the storage collection vehicles come empty these containers and keep the containers at their original location. Here, the household owners are not responsible for emptying of the container or keeping the container to its original location. And for low or medium rise apartments, mechanized unloading of containers are done. Like these containers are kept along the side of the road. These are emptied by the mechanized vehicles, which empty the waste and keep the containers back at its original location. And also, since it is a low or medium rise apartment, there can be a maintenance staff, which will who will look after the emptying of these containers and maintenance of the waste. So here we can see a figure where a sanitation lady or maintenance staff is there to look after the emptying of the waste. And for high rise apartment, large storage containers are used because number of households are larger in number, and so mechanical emptying of these containers are done. So these are the vehicles which are commonly used for primary collection. So if there is some locality where the roads are very narrow and these type of collection vehicles cannot go, so there are tricycles or rickshaws where a person rides this rickshaw and collects the waste from different households, and then the waste from the whole locality or community is taken to a particular location, and from that it is then loaded into the larger collection vehicles. It can be either mechanically driven or it can be driven by hands, that is manually, or there can be mini trucks like this with hydraulic container which will run on diesel or petrol. So there are some of the considerations like curb ma- in curb, manual or mechanized emptying of the containers. It requires the household cooperation is required in this. In alley, it can be optional if the manual mechanized unloading of the emptying of the waste is done. Next is set out setback. Household cooperation is not that much needed. If the waste is kept outside the community, it can be taken by the person who is riding the that truck, or it can be accompany a additional person who will empty these containers. And in backyard, there is no. It is not the responsibility of the homeowner to empty the container or keep it back. So these are some of the consideration. Please go through it in the slides. So also we can see that in set out and setback collection of the waste, there is no attract. It is scavengers are not attracted because the waste are directly collected from the houses. So it will not be attacked by animals, not by it will not be scavenged by the rat pickers. So this type of condition where there is lot of animals eating from the waste, or there will be lot of flies and rodents. This will not happen in the door-to-door collection, that is set out setback collection. So please go through these in the slides. So we will go to the fourth lecture, which is the last lecture in week 2. So, so here secondary collection of the waste is discussed. So we will discuss about the secondary collection. So primary collection is known as also called as collection services, and the secondary collection is also known as collection system. So we will see the type of collection system. So this is a picture for old India before the introduction of collection system. So the waste was lying in a community bin, and there was lot of spillage. And here also we can see that tractors are used to carry the waste, and there is a lot of spillage from the tractor itself. It is overloaded, and a lot of waste is getting spilled on the road itself. So here also we can see that waste is getting loaded on the tractor, and there will be a lot of spillage. So after JNURL, it was launched in 2005. Community bins were capped, and there were two types of container: hall containers and stationary containers. The areas where lesser waste was generated, they were having these areas were having stationary containers, and where large amount of waste was generated, hall containers was kept. But even though these containers are kept, we can see that lot of waste is lying along on the side of the roads, we can see that the containers are not fully utilized, and there are a lot of waste lying near the containers, because generally people do not go near the container and they dump their waste, and they do not dump their waste in the containers. Rather, they prefer to just dump it along the side of the containers, and to collect these waste and transfer it to the containers. Lot of manual labor is required. So next is collection in haul container vehicles. Collected in haul container vehicles to processing or treatment disposal site. We can see that the bins are loaded on the collection vehicles, and they are further taken to the transfer station or to the processing facilities. So these can be either but mechanical or but since larger size vehicle, first tipping of the larger size vehicles, mechanized system of unloading is required. And after Swachh Bharat mission, so here we can see that there are green bins where the recyclable waste will be tipped, and green bins where the wet waste will be tipped, and the blue bins where the dry waste will be tipped. And also there can be compacted vehicles where the recyclable waste can be compacted. But if we are even though we are compacting the unsegregated waste, it will lead to corrosion. So if the vehicle is carrying the unsegregated waste, then there will be corrosion of the container vehicles, because there will be production of leachate, and the pH of the leachate is generally acidic. And since we know that acidic pH is corrosive, so it will corrode the container, and there was lot of corroding of, and it will reduce, and slowly the container will not be of use. And also dumping of this unsegregated waste is not a good thing, because we can see there is lot of flies, lot of land area is required, and we know that to acquire the land for making a landfill is very difficult, because no one wants the landfill to be near their locality, because it attracts lot of rodents, lot of flies, lot of birds, and the odor is very bad. So segregation of the waste at source itself is very, very important. So secondary collection system can be done in two systems. First one is the hall container system. So in hall container systems, the storage containers are hauled to the material recovery facility or the transfer station or to the disposal site. They are emptied and they are returned back either to their original location or to their some other location. So hall container system, these are ideally suited for removal of waste from sources where the rate of generation is high. So here it is a figure for a hall container system. So there will be a vehicle. So it will start its daily routine at the morning. It will go to the collection where the dustbin is kept. So it will take the bin or collection container. It will take it to the transfer station or material recovery facility or to the dump site. And after emptying it here, it will take back the container to its original location. And then the vehicle will go to the next location. Again, it will take the full container to the these transfer station, and again it will empty it and keep the emptied container to its location too. Again, it will go to the next location, and it will go to the nth location until the end of the day. It will empty the container and it will keep the container at its nth location, and it will be the end of the day. So this is the conventional mode of operation, where the vehicle comes, take the container to the transfer station or material recovery facility, and brings back the container to its original location, and then goes to serve the next location. So here we have a second exchange container mode in the hall container system. So we have a exchange container mode. So what happens? The vehicle will start its daily routine in the morning. It will already contain a empty container in the vehicle. So it will come. It will keep the empty container at its location one. It will take the full bin or full storage bin. It will go to the transfer station, and since the empty container has already been kept at location 1, it will go directly from the transfer station to the location 2. After loading the container from location 1, there will be a empty container in the collection vehicle, so it will go and keep the empty container in location 2, take the full container from location 2, come to the transfer station, empty it, and again go to location 3, keep the empty container and take the full container to the transfer station. So here we can see that the time and resources from go for going from one location to second, then from second to third is omitted, and so this is more efficient as compared to the conventional mode. And also, after the end of the daily route, if some time will be left, then this vehicle can can serve some other locality or community. So here we can see there are collection truck. First is the hoist truck. So here we can see that these are generally nearly 30 degree, where that truck can tilt and it can empty the waste. But since the tilt is less, it has application limited to few pickup points with considerable amount of waste are generated, and generally they collect the bulky items and industrial rubbish like scrap metals and construction debris, which are not suitable for collection with compaction vehicles, because these waste like construction debris cannot be compacted. Next is the tilt frame container. So here we can see that the angle of tilt is very large, so the waste can be emptied very efficiently from these containers. So these are ideally suited for all types of solid waste and rubbish where the generation rate warrants the use of large container. Wherever there is lot of generation of the waste, these types of containers can be used. And they are generally used at apartment complexes, commercial services, and transfer stations. Next is truck tractor trash trailer. It is better for collection of specially heavy rubbish, sand, timber, and metal scrap, because we can see that the container size is tractor size is very large, so it can be used to transport very heavy waste which is generated. So here some of the advantages and disadvantages are discussed for the hall container system. So the disadvantage is that if the waste containers are not fully filled and it is taken and emptied to the transfer station, then the whole capacity of the containers cannot be used. So the utilization rate will be very low. So a city can be divided into various areas where the generation of the waste is very high, then this type of system can be used. But where the generation of the waste is not that high, then different collection system can be used. So next is the secondary collection container system. So what happens in secondary collection system? The waste is stored in these bins, but these bins are not taken to the transfer station. Rather, these bins are emptied onto the larger collection vehicles, and only the waste is taken to the transfer station. So it can be of two types, where the manually loaded collection vehicles are used, where the bins are unloaded manually, or there can be mechanically loaded collection vehicles. So here we can see that the day will begin. So the waste will be emptied into the collection vehicle, and the emptied bin can be kept at location 1. From location 1, the vehicle will go to location 2. It will empty the full vehicle, keep the emptied vehicle at location 2, will go to location 3, and so on. And after serving the nth location at the end of the day, it will unload the full container and keep the emptied container there, and it will go to the finally to the transfer station or disposal site after uh, the full capacity of the vehicle is used. If the vehicles get filled after serving 4 to 5 location, then it will go to the transfer station. So here it is a picture for manually loaded truck where the manual labor is used to unload these containers. So here it is a picture. So here it was a side loaded. So from this side the beans will be emptied. So it is a rear loading where at the back side of the vehicle the bins can be unloaded. Again, it is a picture for rear loaded containers. And also, there can be mechanically loaded trucks where the containers will be lifted mechanically and it can be emptied and kept at its original location. So, the advantage of stationary container system is that the areas where a lot of waste is not generated, in that areas we can use the stationary container system, and it will result in higher utilization of rate because after the storage containers uh, are fully utilized, it will be emptied into the collection vehicles. The disadvantages are that these are not suited for heavy industrial waste and bulk rubbish because it may damage the relatively delicate mechanism of the trucks. And also, next is it is difficult to service in location where high volume of rubbish is generated because if the vehicle will not be emptied very frequently, then it will be very unesthetically it will be unesthetically it will be aesthetically unpleasing because of the spilling of the waste near the dustbin containers. And if there is manual unloading of the containers, then lot of manpower is required. So here is some data given for different type of collection vehicles and what are the capacity of the each collection vehicle. So this was the last lecture of week 2. Now we'll move to the previous year assignment questions. So I hope everything was clear. If any one of you have any doubt, then you can just unmute yourself and ask. And if you have no doubt, then we can move to the assignment questions. Okay, so I think there is no doubt. So let's go to the assignment question. So what I will do, I will display you the question. I will give you 1 or 2 minutes. You just take your time and write whatever option you think is correct into the chat box, and from there I will see what are your responses, and then we'll discuss which is the correct option. So the first question is in function element of municipal solid waste management, processing and transformation is followed by A. Transfer and transport. B. Secondary collection. C. Disposal. Or D. Storage. So I will give you all 2 minutes. Just take your time and write your option in the chat box, and then we will discuss. So almost all of you have given written the answer as C. So C is the correct answer, that after processing and transformation of the waste, it is sent for disposal. So C is the correct answer. So let's move to the next question. So the next question is, which type of waste need to be discarded in blue bins for segregation of household waste? First is soil tissues, paper cardboard, discarded clothing. B. Paper cardboard, plastics, wood, metals, glass. Or C. E-waste, household medical waste, batteries, light bulbs. Or D. Soil tissues, food wrappers, paper towels, fish and meat. So you have to select which of the blue bin is used for segregation of which of the following type of waste. So again, I will give you all 2 minutes. Just take your time and write the correct option in the chat box. So only three of you have answered. So I'll encourage every one of you to please write the option in the chat box. So I have got B, A, and D as the options in the chat box. So let's see which is the correct one. So soil tissues, paper, cardboard, discarded clothing. So this should not be kept in the blue bins, because soil tissues, these are kept in the green bin. That is the bins for wet waste. Next is the paper, cardboard, plastic, woods, metals, glass. So we can keep this in the blue bin. Next is the e-waste, household medical waste, batteries, light bulbs. So these are the comes under the category of hazardous waste, and for hazardous waste, yellow bins are used. And last is the soil tissues, food wrappers, paper towels, fish and meat. So these are biodegradable. So we need to discard in the green bins. So B is the correct answer. That for blue bins, paper, cardboard, plastic, wood, metals, glass. These are kept in the blue bins at the household level. So B is the correct answer. So I got a few B and A and D. No, A and D are not the correct answer. B is the correct answer. So let's move to the next question. The question is, what is the maximum distance between a house and the nearest dustbin for waste storage? So these questions are directly from the lecture slides. So I hope every one of you should be able to write if you have gone through the video lecture. So again, I will give you 2 minutes. Just take your time and write the correct option in the chat box. So I'm getting A and C as the answer. But C, 100 meter was not discussed in the lectures. So C can't be the answer.
It is showing in internet, madam.
Okay. But for your reference, there are video lectures and also you can download the PDF.
250.
Yes. So 250 is the correct answer that the maximum distance between a house and the nearest dustbin should not be more than 250 meters. And the distance between two dustbins should not be more than 500 meters. So A is the correct answer. C 100 meter and D 50 meter. These are not the distance which are discussed. So let's move to the next question. So the fourth question is which is the most common on-site processing operations used at residential dwellings for dry waste? A incineration, B composting, C anaerobic digestion or D vermicomposting. So this is also a straight question from the lectures. So I'll give you 2 minutes. Just take your time and write the answer in the chat box. So for dry waste, incineration is the most common on-site processing operation. Composting, anaerobic digestion, and vermicomposting, all three are performed for the wet waste. Only incineration is performed for dry waste. So A is the correct answer for this question. That incineration is the processing operation which is used at residential dwellings for dry waste. But so I was getting mixed answer as A and B. So A is the correct answer, not B. So let's move to the next question. So the question is what are the processing technologies used for sanitary waste? A. Gasification, B. Anaerobic digestion, C. Gasification and incineration, or D. Autoclaving and incineration. So I'll give you 2 minutes. Just write your answer in the chat box. So I'm getting C and B as the answer. Okay. So, although autoclaving was not discussed in week two, so autoclaving is a process which is generally used for the uh, hazardous waste like medical waste, in which in autoclaving all the pathogens or the microbes which can pathogens are the disease causing microorganisms. So in autoclaving they are killed, and that waste like the medical waste or sanitary waste, these can be free of the microbes or the pathogens. And further, after autoclaving, it can be incinerated because sanitary waste are generally handled by incinerating, and after incineration, the ash can be disposed. So gasification is the process in which the combustion of the waste is or any material is taken in oxygen limited condition. That air is used, but the concentration of oxygen is limited. And anaerobic digestion, it is done for the wet waste or the biodegradable waste. So and next is gasification and incineration. So both gasification and incineration are the process in which the waste is burnt, and it after through burning of the waste it produces heat, and this heat can be used for energy generation. And also in gasification, complete combustion does not take place because the amount of oxygen is limited, and that's why we get the syngas, which consists of the gases like methane, which can be used for energy, which can be used to produce energy. So D is the correct answer. That is, autoclaving and incineration is used for processing of the sanitary waste. So let's move to the next question. So the question is, what are the techniques used to speed up the composting process? A. Addition of more water. B. Maintaining optimum ratio of wet and dry waste. C. Addition of microorganisms. Or D. Reducing the moisture content to 20%. So again, this was discussed in the lecture slide. So I'll give you 2 minutes. Just take your time and write the option in the chat box. So I got only two responses. One is C and one is B. So to speed up the composting process, generally microbes are added. So C is the correct answer. A, that is addition of more waste. This will not speed up the composting process. Rather, it will slow down the composting process. If a sufficient number of microbes will not be present, it will take more time to compose those waste. Next is maintaining optimum ratio of wet and dry waste. So dry waste is not composted, only wet waste is composted.
And the moisture, madam, you are talking about the moisture 50 to 60%.
Yes. Sorry, please unmute yourself.
Yes, madam. Actually, I was thinking that the maintaining optimum ratio of wet and dry waste, because you are talking about 50 to 60% moisture to be maintained for the composting process.
Yes, but here dry waste doesn't mean papers and papers which we add during composing. Dry waste means all the types of dry waste, that is glass, metals, and also B cannot be the correct answer.
Okay, madam. So more number of microorganisms added, the result will be better.
Yes, but also there will be a limit to the amount of microbes which we can add, because there will be, if there will be lot of microbes present, then degradation will be faster, but there can be possibility that amount of biodegradable carbon will be lesser as compared to the microbes, and the microbes will start eating each other, so we cannot add microbes in that much amount, so there will be some limit to the addition of microbes also. The basically for any
Okay, madam.
biological process, optimum conditions are needed. Optimum amount of moisture, optimum amount of microbes, temperature, everything. There is some optimum range in which the biological process performs efficiently.
Okay,
So,
madam.
okay. So C is the correct answer, that addition of microbes will boost the composting process. Next is reducing the moisture content to 20%. No moisture content was more than 50%. So C is the correct answer. So let's move to the next question. So the question is, which type of composting is done only in household level? So here we have given four options. We have to choose the type of composting which is done at household level. A, in vessel composting, B, pile composting, C, vermi composting, or D, pit composting. So again I will give you 2 minutes. Just take your time and write the option in the chat box, and then we will discuss. So I'll request every one of you to please participate in these questions because these questions are the previous year questions. So these type of several questions you have to solve in the current assignment and also if you are going to give the final exam. So this type of question will be there also. So I request every one of you to please write whichever option you think is correct in the chat box. Because I'm getting response from only 2 to 3%. Okay, let's see. So I got C as the answer and I got only one A. So C is not the correct answer because the question is which type of composting is done only in household level. So vermicomposting can be done both at household level or it can be done at the community level or at the larger level. And A is the in-vessel composting. So these are the smaller vehicles which are used for composting at the household level. B is the pile composting. Pile composting is done generally for the community level. C is vermicomposting. It can be done both for household and community level. D is the pit composting. So these are generally performed in the community level. So based on whether the composting is done in the household or at the community or larger level, we have to answer this question. So vermicomposting is general. It can be both for in-house or it can be for the community level. So basically, we have to write the option in which the size of the container or the type of the container for composting, which is given in the options. So in vessel composting is the only option out of the four which is performed at the household level. So A is the correct answer. D is also not correct because pit composting is generally performed at the community level where a pit is dug in the garden or some other place where the people from all the household they go and empty their wet waste in these pits. So A is the correct answer. I hope this is clear. If you have any doubt, then you can ask, or otherwise we can move to the next question. Okay. So let's move to the question number 8. So the question is which of the following is included in secondary collection of waste? A. Curb services, B. LA services, C. Set out services, or D. Haul container service system. So here secondary collection of waste is asked out of the four type of services which is used for secondary collection of waste. So I'll request you all to please write the option in the chat box and then we will discuss. I got 4D. So D is the correct answer. That hall container system is used in the secondary collection of waste. Curb services, LA services, and set out services, or these are used in the primary collection of the waste. So, hall container system is the correct answer, where the containers are hauled to the transfer station or material facility, recycling facilities, and after emptying of the container, they are kept back to its original location or to the other location. So, next question is, in which waste collection services owner is responsible for returning the containers to their storage location? A. Backyard services. B. Set out services. C. Set out setback services. Or D. Door to door services. So, again, I will give you 2 minutes. Just take your time and write the correct option in the chat box. So, I've got answer as D and B. So, D is not the correct answer. B is the correct answer. So, in backyard services, the homeowner is not responsible for returning the container. The collection vehicle come, empty the container, and keep the container at its original location. In set out services, the homeowner is responsible to return the container to its storage location, to its original storage location. Next is the set out setback services, or next is door to door services. So, set out setback is also known as door to door services. In this, also, what happens, the owner is not emptying the storage container, rather, they just go and empty their household smaller container bins into the collection vehicle and take back the containers to their home. So, B, that is set out services, is the correct option, in which the owner is responsible for returning the container to their original storage location. So, let's move to the next question, which is the last question for week 2. So, the question is, in which collection services the cost due to size and time requirement is high? A. Curb services. B. Alley services. C. Set out setback services. Or D. Backyard services. So again, I will give you 2 minutes. Just write your answer in the chat box and then we'll see which is the correct one. So I got 2C and 1D. D is not the correct answer. C is the correct answer. In curb, alley, and backyard services, that much time and cost is not required as compared to the set out setback services. Set out setback services is the door to door collection, where the collection vehicle goes and collect waste from each of the household in that locality. So lot of cost and time is required in door to door collection, but door to door collection is more efficient in the waste, as if you compare the waste um, recycling and reuse, because if the waste is segregated at the source, and if it is not segregated, then door to door collection will also not lead to that much recycling and reuse of the recyclables from the waste. So set out setback services is the collection service in which the cost due to size and time requirement is the highest. So C is the correct answer. So these were the questions based on the previous year questions. So these are the questions based on the week 2 lectures. So I hope all the questions and all the concept is clear. If any one of you have any doubt, then you can just unmute yourself and ask. And if no one have any doubt, so we can end the session here and we will meet on next Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m. Okay. Okay, I think there is no doubt because I cannot see any message in the chat. Neither of you have raised your hand, so thank you so much for joining. Okay. So thank you so much for joining. Now you can leave the call. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a nice day. Have a nice day.